In one of my previous videos, examining cyberpsychosis, there was a brief section where I explained the state of Night City and specified about the state of the NCPD, how the entire city police force was corrupt, and how the entire force pretty much considers it easier to kill a would-be perp to save on paperwork. Well, that wasn't entirely true. Once in a while, a denizen of Night City grows up idolizing the police, mostly because they see the heroics of one singular officer in the line of duty who upholds some sense of morality in the city versus the absolute chaos that is the rest of the force. These particular officers almost never last long, but for the amount of time they do last, they leave a lasting impression on the city's youth, or in some cases, a friendly merc for hire. The player character's Lawman can be one such case should you so choose. His role ability is backup, and like the media and rocker boy before him, most of his explanation is broke down into a tier list by rank. This doesn't mean that we'll be treating this class the same as the other two, however, as this particular role ability calls in quite a bit of in-world government enforcement past rank 7. But before we look at the progression chart, I think we should probably look at how the mechanics play first. And of course, we start with a quote. Lawman can call upon the help of a group of fellow law enforcers based on the Lawman's backup rank and the conditions under which the call is made. The backup will be armed and armored based on the table below and will be played by the GM. Again, like in the media class, we see some work for the GM, but instead of multiple roles to be made in secret, we see the GM entering a roleplay scenario by force. Normally, a good GM will roleplay an NPC to help with immersion, but some are only there to facilitate and referee the rules. When in danger, you can call on backup from a group of your backup rank or lower. As an action, you attempt to roll equal or lower than your backup rank on a D10 to get someone to respond to your call. If you abuse this, your boss will throw you off the force or fine you as they see fit. After someone responds to your call, you roll a d6 to find out in how many rounds your backup will arrive on the scene. If you roll a 6 on this roll instead of your typical backup, the backup that arrives will be of the next highest level of backup, unless you are rank 10, in which case 2 separate backup groups will arrive. If no one responds to your call, you can always try your backup call again next turn. Let's say your backup rank is 4. You need to roll a 4 or lower on a d10 to receive backup from the force. After the d10 roll, you'll roll a d6 to see how many rounds you need to wait. Let's say you roll a 5. That's 5 turns before you receive the backup you called for. Now, if you roll a 6, you wait 6 rounds and you get backup from the next rank up. So, in this case, a rank 4's lawman would get a rank 5 lawman's backup. However, at rank 10, you get 2 separate backup groups. What does this mean? Do you get double the backup? Well, technically, yes. This is something I assume is up to the GM. I'd assume at rank 10, you could have one set of backup arrive 3 rounds in and have the other set arrive after the full 6 rounds. Or you could have both separate groups arrive after 6 rounds, or even have one set of backup arrive every 6 rounds. It's because of the vague wording that I make these suggestions. Personally, I think the rank 10 perks were written under the very logical assumption that a player character will not make it to rank 10 in the first place. If the GM is playing right, the player character shouldn't make it to rank 10. I know how it sounds, but the world of cyberpunk is very, very dark and incredibly dangerous. The phrase, "there are no happy endings in Night City," exists for a reason. Moving on. We're going to look at what you get per rank from the backup role ability. We'll cover their stats, and whenever an in-world government agency or branch of police are mentioned, I'll explain them briefly. Let's go ahead and define the 4 basic stats mentioned in each tier of backup. I'll read the stats on page 158 and cover them mostly when we discuss the first rank. For this, again, I'll be reading directly from the book, so it'll likely sound just a little bit choppy. Or incredibly choppy because it's just brief definitions and phrases. Anyway, combat number. A skill base used for both offense and defense. This number combines both stat and skill for them. You will add a d10 roll to this value whenever attacking with their carried weapons or equipment or defending. Backup cannot dodge bullets. SP, the stopping power of the armor on both their body and head location. HP, the amount of hit points that each member of the backup has. Move and body, the backup's move and body stat, important for movement and for some effects that reference the target's move or body, like death saves. So, looking at backup rank 1 and 2, the combat number is 8, the SP is 7, the HP is 20, the move and body is 4. Your backup is corporate security. 4 local rent-a-cops on the scene arriving on foot. They carry heavy pistols and wear Kevlar. Let me first explain the combat number. It's the number you'll add to your roll to hit. In that case, it'll be a D10 plus 8, making a maximum total of 18. Next is your SP. If you've jumped ahead to the armor section, you'll know that head armor and body armor are 2 separate entities. Let's say you equip Light Armor Jack, which has 11 SP for your head and Kevlar for your body. Your head now has an armor rating of 11 SP, and your body now has an SP rating of 7. So if someone targets your head is protected by 11 armor, but if someone targets your body is only protected by 7 armor. You don't actually add these values together when completing the armor portion of the character sheet. So that means the SP for the corporate security is 7 for the head and 7 for the body, not a total of 14 altogether. Hit points are self-explanatory. It's your health. The multiple states of damage is something we'll cover when we finally hit the gameplay portion of this series, so I'll hold off on a deeper explanation for now. Finally, move and body. Those are stats that are synonymous with character creation on a player level. Body determines things like initiative, and move is how far the character can move on its turn. This concludes the crash course on stats for the cops that will hopefully be coming to your aid. We can now cover the rest of the tiers. At ranks 3 and 4, you get some local beat cops. They arrive in 2 compact ground cars, carry heavy pistols, and are armored in Kevlar. Their combat number is 10, their SP is 7, their HP is 25, and their move and body is 5. They're local beat cops. You get 4 local cops on the beat. Ranks 5, 6, and 7 see you maintaining one singular group for backup, the local sheriff's department. 2 local county mounties patrolling the exurbs and the highways around the city will arrive in a high-performance ground car, armed with heavy pistols and assault rifles, armored in heavy armor jack. Their stats are as follows: combat number of 14, an SP rating of 13, and they have 35 hit points and a move and body score of 4. Rank 8 sees our first in-world backup unit, the Recovery Zone Marshal. Like the Marshals of the Old West, these are lone lawmen who patrol the recovery zones and new cities. One singular Marshal arrives on a superbike, carrying a very heavy pistol, an assault rifle, a grenade launcher, and wearing flak armor. His stats are pretty good, sitting at a combat number of 16, an SP rating of 15. He sits at 50 hit points, and his move and body rating is 6. Taking a quick moment to explain the recovery zone and its marshal. A recovery zone is a step up, at least as much as it can be, from a combat zone. It's an area that's been reclaimed from the gangs by the local PD, a megacorporation, or other much more sane group, like the Nomads. The Marshal oversees the recovery zone, making sure that the recovery zone stays out of the hands of violent gang members and taking care of any normal families affected by these gangs. Rank 9 sees us get to use Max Tac as backup. You get 2 heavy hitters from the Psycho Squad. They carry assault rifles and rocket launchers, wearing metal gear. They will arrive from the air in an AV-4, as is standard fashion for the group. Their stats aren't as good as the Recovery Zone Marshal, but hey, you get 2. And if your GM is nice enough, the AV-4 might be used as an autonomous combat vehicle. Here are the stats. The combat number is 15, it has an armor SP rating of 18, 35 hit points, and a move and body score of 4. I discussed Max Tac and C-SWAT in the Cyber Psychosis video, which I've linked at the end of the video and as a card at the beginning, but I'll at least describe them briefly here as well. C-SWAT, the Psycho Squad, or Max Tac as they've become known, are a specialist group of the police that specializes in location and subsequent execution of cyber psychos. Not often do they actually capture and rehabilitate cyber psychos, as for the same reason the rest of the NCPD just executes criminals. It's less paperwork. Something I neglected to mention in the Cyber Psychosis video, however, is that Max Tac is mostly made up of rehabilitated cyber psychos. So some of the murders committed by this group are probably to sate the bloodlust associated with cyberpsychosis. Rank 10 pulls out all the stops. You get characters from national law enforcement, Interpol, FBI, or Netwatch. These are serious hitters operating under the control of national governments or international law enforcement groups. They travel in pairs, will arrive in an AV-4 and are outfitted with very heavy pistols, assault rifles, and in light armorjack. Unlike all other forms of backup, these serious hitters stick around after the conflict ends and insists in investigating the scene. While they will not travel with the crew on a day-to-day basis, after the first time they are called, the same two serious hitters will always respond to calls for backup connected to the initial call until the case is closed, or they fall in the line of duty. Additionally, they can use their combat number for these skills: accounting, acting, conceal and reveal object, criminology, cryptography, deduction, education, forgery, interrogation, paramedic, perception, personal grooming, resist drugs and torture, stealth, and tracking. There only ends up being one other in-world government agency that I need to explain in this particular video, and I mentioned it above. I'll try to be brief, but when discussing Netwatch, it's hard not to be long-winded. Let's begin. Netwatch was founded in 2013 by a US Euro Theatre treaty basing itself out of London, England. Up to the point of the data crash, which is the shutdown of the internet due to some really souped-up malware, Netwatch was responsible for patrolling the net and preventing cybercrimes, a la digital beat cops. During this time, they would gain several nicknames like Net Cops, Wolves, Weasels, and the Iceman, with that last one likely being due to their implementation of black ice to kill or maim their opposition. Post-data crash, they were responsible for setting up city nets, LAN parties that use VPNs to host their servers, as well as making contact with AIs that survived the malware released during the data crash in hopes to reverse the damage done to the previous iteration of the net. An off-the-books project called the Blackwall. By 2077, their responsibilities grew to include keeping other netrunners and netrunner gangs like the Voodoo Boys away from the Blackwall. And that ties up the Lawman with added information. Again, I'll close on a simple note for the roleplay. If you've played through River Ward's questline in Cyberpunk 2077, using his character as a core to the Lawman class would be moderately helpful to build on. He is incredibly jaded, but depending on the choices you make during the questline, he exhibits the will and need to do good in the world, to be hopeful. Alright, we've reached the end of the video. Some of you may have noticed that I skipped a class. We will discuss the exec, but there is quite a lot to that class, which means a lot of writing. Not as much as the Netrunner, but still quite a bit to contend with. That class will either be discussed at the end of the class series, or I'll fill that time with other content. But I don't think I can justify the halt in progress in discussing these classes, not on the account of one class having a lot of information to digest. Also, I have some alternate video game content written specifically for Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, but I just don't know if I have the heart to work it out. I'm not too confident in my video game writing skills, not in the form of retrospectives or even complaining about it, so let me know in the comments down below if you want to see it anyway. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and maybe your subscription. It would help me out immensely. I love you all, and I'll see you all later.